Did you kill your mother?
Yeah.
And why did you kill her?
She wasn't taking care of my family.
And so because she wasn't taking care of you and your family, you decided to kill her.
Are you ready for a bone-chilling tale that will leave you questioning the very nature of evil? Well, brace yourself as we are about to uncover the shocking story of the world's most dangerous teen, young individuals whose crimes have sent shockwaves through society. Kept in isolation, these enigmatic figures have captivated the world with their unimaginable acts of violence. Prepare yourself for a journey into the depths of darkness as we explore the chilling details of their crimes, the factors that may have contributed to their behavior, and the lingering question of whether true rehabilitation is possible. Amarjit Sada. Amarjit Sada was born into a poverty-stricken family in Bihar, India in 1998. From the moment he entered this world, it was clear that his life would be anything but ordinary. Growing up in a small village, Amarjit faced the harsh reality of poverty, neglect, and a lack of opportunities. But it was his troubled mind that would ultimately set him on a path of unimaginable horror. Even as a young child, Amarjit exhibited signs of disturbing behavior. His parents, overwhelmed by their own struggles, were unable to provide the attention and guidance he desperately needed. As a result, Amarjit's dark tendencies went unnoticed, festering and growing within him. At the age of 8, the world would witness the first glimpse of Amarjit's capacity for evil. In a shocking display of violence, Amarjit took the life of his 6-year-old cousin by choking her to death. What is perhaps even more disturbing is the reaction of Amarjit's parents. Instead of reporting the crime to the authorities, they chose to keep it hidden, burying the truth along with the lifeless body of the child. This decision would have dire consequences, emboldening Amarjit to continue down a path of darkness. With his first taste of blood, Amarjit's thirst for violence only grew stronger. His next victim would be none other than his 8-month-old sister, but Amarjit's reign of terror did not stop there. His insatiable appetite for violence led him to claim yet another innocent life. This time, it was a 6-month-old girl from his neighborhood. The details of this crime are too gruesome to comprehend. Amarjit strangled the helpless child, then proceeded to strike her with a brick before burying her lifeless body. The sheer brutality and lack of remorse displayed in these acts are beyond comprehension. It was only a matter of time before the truth would come to light. Amarjit, seemingly unfazed by the horrors he had committed, confessed to his crimes. As the authorities took Amarjit into custody, the world was left grappling with the question of how such darkness could exist within someone so young. It was during his arrest that Amarjit was diagnosed with conduct disorders, a serious behavioral and emotional disorder that can manifest in violent and aggressive behavior. But even with this diagnosis, the true depths of Amarjit's depravity remained a mystery. As a minor, Amarjit was sent to a juvenile detention facility where he would spend the next several years of his life. The hope was that with proper treatment and rehabilitation, he could be reintegrated into society, but the question of whether someone with such a dark past can truly be reformed and reintegrated remains a haunting one. James Fairweather.
So I went up to him. Can I stand up? No.
Yes.
Went up to him. Stood over like that. Not helping that. So I stabbed him first there. And I've done it a few times. While I was doing that, my voices were laughing and laughing and laughing louder and louder.
Those were the chilling words of a killer teen who went on to brutally kill 2 people because the voices in his head asked him to. In the quiet town of Colchester, Essex, a young boy named James Fairweather was about to embark on a path of darkness that would forever stain the community. Fairweather, a troubled teenager, attended Colchester Academy, where he struggled academically due to his dyslexia. But it wasn't just his learning difficulties that set him apart. It was his growing fascination with violence and criminal behavior. As he entered his teenage years, his behavior escalated, and he began engaging in criminal activities that would foreshadow the horrors to come. Knife-point robberies became Fairweather's modus operandi as he targeted unsuspecting victims, instilling fear and leaving them traumatized. His criminal activities didn't stop there. He also indulged in acts of vandalism and criminal damage, wreaking havoc on the community that would soon become his hunting ground. But it was on that fateful day in March 2014 when 15-year-old Fairweather's true darkness was revealed. James Atfield, a 33-year-old man who who had suffered a brain injury from a car accident, became the first victim of Fairweather's murderous rampage. Atfield, innocently lying on the grass at Castle Park, was brutally attacked by Fairweather, who unleashed a frenzied assault upon him. The sheer brutality of the attack was unimaginable. Atfield had over 100 stab wounds, evidence of a desperate struggle for survival. The community was left in shock and disbelief as they grappled with the senseless violence that had invaded their peaceful town. According to Fairweather, the voices in his head had chosen Atfield as his next victim.
Some voices were talking to me. You need to make a sacrifice, or we're going to come and get you. You need to do it. And I saw him. It was laying on the grass. Like that. It was like that. Just fast asleep, where he was drunk. Then he goes, "He's the one. He's the one. He's the one. Do it, do it."
Just 3 months later, the town of Colchester would be plunged into darkness once again. On a serene summer day in June 2014, Nahid Almanea, a 31-year-old Saudi student, fell victim to Fairweather's insatiable bloodlust. Fairweather stabbed Almanea in the abdomen, causing her unimaginable pain and suffering. But his depravity didn't stop there. In a sickening display of sadism, he forced the knife into her eyes and brain, extinguishing any flicker of hope for survival. The brutality of the crime sent shockwaves through the community, leaving them paralyzed with fear. It would take over a year for the authorities to catch a break in the case. In May 2015, a glimmer of hope emerged when Fairweather was spotted loitering with a knife. The police swiftly apprehended him, preventing what could have been a third murder. Fairweather was found guilty of both murders. In April 2016, Fairweather was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 27 years. The weight of his actions would weigh heavily upon him for decades to come. Brenda Ann Spencer.
Minutes after 16-year-old Brenda Spencer started shooting, police officers arrived at the scene ready to take any necessary action in order to avoid any further bloodshed.
In the dark annals of crime, there are stories that shock and disturb us to our core. One such tale is that of Brenda Ann Spencer, a name that has become synonymous with terror and tragedy. Brenda Ann Spencer's story begins in the poverty-stricken neighborhoods of San Diego, California, in the early 1960s. Born on April 3, 1962, Brenda's childhood was marred by hardship and instability, but it was her troubled relationship with her father that would shape her path toward darkness. Brenda's father, Wallace Spencer, was a man plagued by his own demons. He struggled with alcoholism and was often absent from Brenda's life. Left to fend for herself, Brenda found solace in the streets, where she sought refuge from the chaos of her home. At some point, other people recognized the severity of her emotional distress and suggested that she be placed in a mental hospital for evaluation and treatment. But her father vehemently opposed the idea, refusing to acknowledge the depth of Brenda's troubled state of mind. Instead of seeking professional help, Brenda's father made a decision that would have devastating consequences. For Christmas, he gifted Brenda with a semi-automatic rifle, a weapon that would soon become an instrument of destruction. According to Brenda, she had asked for a radio, but her father got her the firearm because he wanted her to kill herself. January 29, 1979, started like any other Monday morning at Grover Cleveland Elementary School in San Diego, California. Little did the students and staff know that this day would forever be etched in their memories as a day of unimaginable horror. Armed with the semi-automatic rifle her father had given her, Brenda positioned herself at her bedroom window, overlooking the schoolyard. As the morning bell rang, chaos erupted. Brenda unleashed a hail of bullets, firing approximately 30 rounds into the school grounds. The principal, Burton Ragg, and the custodian, Mike Suchar, were tragically struck down, their lives cut short in an instant. With the school under siege, law enforcement quickly descended upon the scene. Police officers, armed and ready, surrounded Brenda's house, creating a tense standoff that would last for hours. Finally, after more than 6 agonizing hours, Brenda Spencer emerged from her home, her weapon discarded. She was taken into custody, ending the harrowing standoff that had gripped the community. When asked why she had committed such a heinous act, Brenda callously replied, "I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day." Her words sent shockwaves through the nation, leaving many to question the depths of her depravity. Charged as an adult, she pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder and assault with a deadly weapon.
As to counts 1 and 2, the sentence is 25 years to life.
She was sentenced to 25 years to life and is currently incarcerated at the California Institution for Women in Chino. William Schultz. William Schultz was just 18 years old when he brutally stabbed and murdered 9-year-old Jordan Almgren, his best friend's younger brother. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder and plagued by delusional beliefs of an apocalyptic war, Schultz was a troubled teen, and his mind had become a breeding ground for dark thoughts and sinister fantasies. It was during this time that the seeds of a disturbed individual were sown. On April 25, 2015, Schultz got into a heated argument with his mother, who kicked him out of the house. According to reports, she had been so worried about him and called called the sheriff's office for help. A deputy was dispatched to the Schultz's home, and William Schultz willingly agreed to go to a mental health facility for an evaluation. Weirdly, he was sent back home the same day without being given any medication for his deteriorating mental health. Since he couldn't go back home, he went to the home of his best friend, who was Jonathan's elder brother, and spent the night. In a crime that sent shockwaves through the community, Schultz committed an act of unspeakable violence. In the early morning hours of April 26, 2015, William Schultz entered the 9-year-old Jonathan's bedroom and repeatedly stabbed him with a 5-inch hunting knife. Like that wasn't bad enough, he slit Jonathan's throat, stabbed him in the neck, and even sank the knife into the young boy's temple. He then proceeded to stab him so hard in the chest that there were hilt marks on Jonathan's body.
Hard to believe this suspect, a family friend, has an explanation, but in a chilling jailhouse interview, he admitted to killing the little boy because he wanted to see what it was like.
William Schultz was eventually apprehended, and after a 9-day trial, the jury deliberated for a mere 45 minutes before reaching a unanimous verdict. He was found guilty of first-degree murder. In the end, he was sentenced to 30 years to life for the brutal murder of Jonathan Almgren. Kip Kinkle. As the sun rose on the quiet town of Springfield, Oregon on that fateful day in May 1998, no one could have predicted the horror that was about to unfold. Thurston High School, a place of learning and camaraderie, would soon become the backdrop for a tragedy that would shake the nation to its core. At the center of this dark tale was Kip Kinkle, a seemingly ordinary 15-year-old student. But behind his innocent facade lurked a troubled soul, haunted by demons that would eventually consume him. Kinkle's descent into darkness began long before that fateful day. His parents, Bill and Faith, had noticed a disturbing change in their son's behavior. He became increasingly withdrawn, his once bright eyes clouded with sadness. They sought help, taking him to a psychologist in the hopes of finding answers. To alleviate his symptoms, Kinkle was prescribed Prozac, a commonly prescribed antidepressant. For a while, it seemed as though the medication was working. Kinkle's mood improved, and his parents breathed a sigh of relief. But as time went on, Kinkle's mental state deteriorated further. He began to exhibit signs of paranoid schizophrenia, a severe mental disorder characterized by delusions and hallucinations. In his troubled mind, he believed that the government had implanted a computer chip in his brain, monitoring his every move. He became convinced that the Chinese were planning to invade the West Coast, and that he alone held the key to stopping them. On the eve of the school shooting, Kinkle's demons finally took control. In a fit of rage and despair, he murdered his parents in their own home. But Kinkle's rampage was far from over. The following day, armed with a semi-automatic rifle and pistols, he entered the crowded cafeteria of Thurston High School. Without warning, he opened fire on his fellow students, indiscriminately spraying bullets into the crowd. 2 classmates lost their lives that day, their dreams and aspirations cut short by the senseless act of a troubled teenager. 25 others were left injured, both physically and emotionally scarred. In the aftermath of the shooting, Kinkle's true intentions came to light. He confessed that his ultimate goal was not to cause harm to others, but rather to provoke a response that would lead to his own demise. He wanted others to kill him, as he could not bring himself to end his own life. The shocking events at Thurston High School sent shockwaves throughout the nation. Kinkle's fate was sealed when he pleaded guilty to murder and attempted murder charges. He was sentenced to 111 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Despite his attempts to seek a new trial, claiming ineffective assistance of counsel, his appeals were denied. Today, Kip Kinkle remains behind bars, a stark reminder of the consequences of untreated mental illness and the devastating toll it can take on individuals and those around them. The shooting at Thurston High School left an indelible mark on the community, with many students still grappling with the trauma they experienced that day. Beaver Brothers.
And so she fell down and started screaming.
Yeah, when I kept stabbing her, I kind of freaked out because, I wasn't planning on this.
Were you saying anything, or,
I just stood there.
Those were the disturbing confessions of 16-year-old Michael Beaver, who along with his 18-year-old brother Robert Beaver, brutally murdered 5 family members. The Beavers were a reclusive family, homeschooling their children and keeping them away from the prying eyes of the outside world. However, within the confines of their home, a toxic environment festered. According to the surviving daughter, Crystal, the parents, David and Crystal Beaver, were abusive towards their children, subjecting them to unimaginable horrors. As the brothers grew older, their resentment towards society intensified. They harbored a deep-seated hatred and a desire to emulate the infamous killers who had made headlines before them. The Columbine High School massacre and the Aurora shootings became their twisted inspiration. In their secret journal, the brothers meticulously planned their attack. They discussed their intentions to kill as many people as possible, starting with their family members. They planned to then move on to random victims at gas stations and restaurants, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. To carry out their sinister plan, the brothers began purchasing weapons and body armor online. online. They wanted to ensure they had the means to inflict maximum damage. Guns were part of their arsenal, but due to delivery delays, they relied on knives to carry out their initial attack. Following a chilling 911 call made by 12-year-old Daniel Beaver on July 22, 2015, police officers arrived at the Beavers' home at 709 Magnolia Court.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, where are you at?
Beacon Out, Oklahoma 7411.
What address?
709 Magnolia Court.
Okay. Are you the only one there?
No, my brother's attacking my family.
Your dad is attacking your family?
When they got there, they discovered blood around the porch of the house and 13-year-old Crystal Beaver calling for help. By the time they forced their way in, Daniel Beaver and 4 other family members were dead, all brutally stabbed multiple times. 2-year-old Autumn Beaver was also found alive and unharmed. The brothers were swiftly apprehended by law enforcement and taken into custody. Their shocking crimes were laid bare for the world to see, leaving a community in shock and disbelief. They faced the consequences of their heinous actions in a court of law. Robert, having pleaded guilty to all counts, was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Michael's trial followed, resulting in a life sentence with the possibility of parole. Their fate sealed, they were destined to spend the rest of their lives behind bars. Robert currently resides at the Joseph Harp Correctional Center, while Michael is held at the Lexington Correctional Center. Their names forever etched in infamy. They serve as a chilling reminder of the depths of human darkness. Will Cornick. In a quiet corner of Leeds, England, a storm was brewing within the walls of Corpus Christi Catholic College. Unbeknownst to the students and faculty, a 15-year-old student named Will Cornick harbored a deep-seated grudge against one of his teachers, Anne McGuire. What began as a seemingly ordinary classroom dynamic would soon spiral into a tragedy that would shock the world. 61-year-old Anne McGuire, a dedicated and beloved teacher, had spent 4 decades shaping young minds within the school's halls. Her passion for education and unwavering kindness had earned her the respect and admiration of her students. But little did she know that one of those students, Will Cornick, had been plotting her demise for some time. Then, on that fateful day on April 28, 2014, the storm finally broke. Cornick, armed with a knife and a heart filled with malice, entered McGuire's classroom during a Spanish lesson. In a matter of seconds, the tranquility of the classroom was shattered as Cornick unleashed a brutal and merciless attack on his unsuspecting teacher. 7 times the knife pierced the air, each strike a testament to the depth of Cornick's rage. The classroom, once a sanctuary of learning, became a scene of unimaginable horror. But amidst the chaos, another teacher, Susan Francis, bravely intervened, shielding McGuire from further harm. As the dust settled, the full extent of Cornick's plan was revealed. He had brought a bottle of whiskey to celebrate his heinous act, and chillingly confessed that his intentions extended beyond McGuire. 2 other teachers had also been marked for death, their lives hanging by a thread. The legal system swiftly took action, and Will Cornick found himself facing the consequences of his heinous act. Despite his age, an anomaly in British law allowed for Cornick's name to be disclosed during the trial. The severity of his crime demanded transparency, and the world learned the name of one of the world's most dangerous teens. The courtroom became a stage for the world to witness the depths of darkness that had consumed Cornick's soul. The sentencing was a moment of reckoning, a chance for justice to prevail. Will Cornick was handed a life sentence, with a minimum of 20 years to be served in prison. The gravity of his crime and the threat he posed to society warranted a punishment that reflected the severity of his actions. But what was perhaps most chilling was Cornick's response to his sentencing. He showed no remorse, no hint of regret for the life he had taken and the pain he had inflicted upon so many. According to him, he knew the family would be pissed off, but he thought that everything that he had done was fine and dandy. Jake Evans.
Ponce County 911, where is your emergency?
My house.
What's the address?
152 River Creek Lane.
Okay, what's the emergency?
I just killed my mom and my sister.
What?
I just killed my mom and my sister.
Our story begins in the quiet town of Aledo, Texas, where a seemingly ordinary teenager named Jake Evans would unleash a wave of terror that would forever haunt the community. It was a day like any other, with no signs of the darkness that lurked within the heart of this troubled young man. Jake, a 17-year-old boy, had always appeared to be a typical teenager, but beneath his seemingly normal exterior, a storm was brewing. Little did anyone know that his mind had been tainted by the influence of a movie, Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween. It was this film that would plant the seeds of darkness in Jake's impressionable mind. As he watched the movie, Jake became captivated by the lack of remorse displayed by the character. It fascinated him, and a sinister idea began to take shape. He would commit an act so heinous, so unthinkable, that it would shock the world and leave a lasting mark on the community he called home. Unbeknownst to his family, they were about to become victims in a real-life horror story. With a stolen .22 revolver in hand in October 2012, Jake made his way through the house, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. He first shot his 15-year-old sister Mallory in the back and head before going into his mother's room and shooting her in the head 3 times. As the reality of his actions sank in, Jake's mind raced. He knew he had to do something to face the consequences of his unimaginable crime. With a heavy heart, he picked up the phone and dialed 911, his voice calm and collected as he confessed to the operator the unspeakable acts he had just committed.
Okay, is there any reason that you were so angry at your mother and your sister?
I don't know. I wasn't. It's weird. I wasn't even really angry with them. It just kind of happened.
Jake was eventually apprehended and was found guilty of the murder charges against him. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison following a plea agreement. Zachary Davis.
Did you kill your mother?
Yeah.
And why did you kill her?
She wasn't taking care of my family.
In the quiet town of Tennessee, a tragedy unfolded on August 10, 2012, that would forever scar the lives of a middle-class family. It was a night filled with unimaginable horror, as 15-year-old Zachary Davis, a troubled teenager with a history of mental illness, committed an act of unspeakable violence that would shock the world. Zachary's life had been marked by tragedy from an early age. At just 9 years old, he experienced the devastating loss of his father, who succumbed to amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, commonly known as ALS. This heartbreaking event left Zachary and his family shattered, and it was during this time that his mental health began to deteriorate rapidly. Struggling with depression and schizophrenia, Zachary's condition went untreated, and the darkness within him grew. Despite his grandmother's belief that proper medical attention could have prevented the tragedy that was to come, the family carried on, unaware of the storm brewing within their own home. As the years went by, Zachary became increasingly isolated, withdrawing from society and displaying disturbing behavior. His interests took a sinister turn as he delved into the world of serial killers and violent video games, immersing himself in a twisted reality that would soon spill over into the real world. On that fateful night, Zachary, his mother, and his older brother went to the movies, seemingly like any other family outing. Little did they know that darkness lurked within Zachary's mind, waiting to be unleashed. Upon returning home, a wave of malevolence overcame him, and he embarked on a path of unimaginable violence. Armed with a sledgehammer, Zachary launched a brutal attack on his mother, unleashing a fury that would forever scar the family. The details of the crime are too gruesome to recount, but it is important to understand the sheer brutality of Zachary's actions. He repeatedly struck his mother, ensuring her death and leaving behind a scene of unimaginable horror.
Give me an example. Well, I was laughing when I stopped when I killed my mother. You were what? I was laughing when I killed my mother.
His intentions, however, did not end there. Zachary had planned to eliminate any witnesses to his heinous act, including his older brother. He set their game room on fire, hoping to cover his tracks and erase any evidence of his monstrous deeds. But fate intervened when a fire alarm suddenly blared, jolting his brother awake and saving his life from the clutches of evil. The aftermath of this tragedy left a community in shock and disbelief. The courts were left to grapple with the question of whether Zachary was deeply disturbed or simply evil. His defense argued that his mental illness was the driving force behind his actions, while the prosecution painted him as a cold-blooded killer. The jury, faced with the weight of their decision, ultimately found Zachary guilty of murder. The sentencing was a reflection of the severity of the crime committed. Zachary Davis was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 51 years. The judge, in delivering the sentence, acknowledged the complexity of the case, highlighting the intersection of mental illness and criminal responsibility. Nicholas Cruz. Finally, we explore the life of Nicholas Cruz, a name that has become synonymous with terror and tragedy. In 2018, Cruz committed the deadliest high school shooting in U.S. history, leaving 17 innocent lives lost and a community shattered. In the shadows of a broken world, a young boy named Nicholas Cruz entered this realm on September 24, 1998. Born into a life of uncertainty, he faced a tumultuous journey that would shape his destiny. Abandoned and left to the mercy of fate, Cruz's path took a fateful turn when he was adopted adopted by Roger and Linda Cruz. However, tragedy struck when both of his adoptive parents passed away, leaving Cruz orphaned once again. The loss of his adoptive parents would prove to be a turning point, setting him on a path of darkness and despair. In 2017, Cruz's turbulent journey reached a breaking point when he was expelled from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. The reasons for his expulsion were shrouded in disciplinary issues that had become all too familiar. The walls of academia, once meant to nurture and educate, had become a battleground for Cruz's inner demons. Depression, autism, and ADHD were constant companions in Cruz's troubled existence. Yet despite these challenges, he was assessed as being at low risk of harming himself or others. Law enforcement had previous encounters with Cruz, and there were reports of his disturbing behavior and threats, but the cries for help went unanswered, and the opportunity to prevent the tragedy that would unfold slipped through the cracks of a flawed system. The consequences of this inaction would be devastating. On February 14, 2018, the halls of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School would become the backdrop for a nightmare. Armed with his legally purchased AR-15-style semi-automatic rifle, Cruz unleashed a wave of terror upon unsuspecting students and staff. The echoes of gunshots reverberated through the corridors, forever changing the lives of those caught in the crossfire. Law enforcement responded swiftly, but the damage had already been done. It took approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes to apprehend Cruz, but the scars left behind would last a lifetime. 17 innocent lives were lost, and 15 others were left wounded, their dreams shattered in an instant. The trial that followed would be a long and painful process, plagued by delays and the weight of grief. Finally, in October 2022, Cruz stood before the court and pleaded guilty to all charges.
My prayer for my birthday present is to get word that you are dead.
The jury, faced with the overwhelming evidence, recommended a sentence that would ensure he would never walk free again. Cruz was sentenced to 34 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, a reflection of the severity of his crimes. As we come to the end of this video involving the world's most dangerous teen in isolation, we are reminded of the depths of human depravity. For more thought-provoking videos like this, click on the cards showing on your screens for more like this.